Good morning, everyone, and welcome to AI and Marketing. The Gap hosting BOMA, and BOMA are going to take us through AI and marketing. We've got some very, very exciting AI innovation, which has just gone live in their product, and you'll see that a little bit later. But first, we're going to really focus in on what's happening with AI and marketing. So I think many of you know who I am, quite a few Gap firms on the line. I'm a co-founder and director here at the Gap in charge of marketing. And on the line today, we have Charles Clark from BOMA, marketing director, and Andy Baird, who's head of engineering. Great to have the head of tech here. So good evening to you guys here in New Zealand. Good morning to everyone in the UK. Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Viv. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Charles now to kick things off, and Charles and Andy are going to be double teaming. Keep the questions coming. By all means, post them into chat or into Q&A.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and thanks for Viv for hosting us. I thought before we actually sort of get into AI, it's just worth taking a minute or two just to put it into context, because obviously, you know, it's seen as a real game-changing technology, but let's not forget that in the last sort of 40 years, there have been a lot of other game-changing technologies. So starting with PCs back in the early 80s, and this really revolutionized computing because it was the first time that computing power could be brought directly to individuals and small businesses. So it enabled tasks to be performed faster and more efficiently, and actually led to the development of a lot of what we're going to be talking about on this slide in terms of other technologies. Then we shifted from traditional 35mm film to digital video, and that really transformed an entire industry, in particular filmmaking. And many actually viewed it at the time as a real threat. They saw it as the end of filmmaking craft. And obviously, in hindsight, we know that it was actually a good thing. What the digital video technology enabled and offered filmmakers was greater flexibility, better cost effectiveness, and accessibility. And that was really the beginning of mass adoption of film as a media for recording, you know, everyday life and events by the masses, which obviously, if you look ahead on this timeline, you'll see play into later technologies. Then we had text messaging, so a new form of communication. Everything previous to that had been voice, and now you could do instant written messages on mobile phones. And that really quickly became preferred communication for many, especially the younger generations. Now, the internet became available publicly in 1991, but it wasn't really until the late 90s that uses became super widespread as platforms like Amazon transformed retail and online news outlets began to disrupt traditional media. In both cases, it really democratized access to information, whether it was to consume it or to then be able to purchase, and really changed how people began to, I suppose, you know, shop as well. Luckily for us, Google's search engine came along not too long afterwards and revolutionized how we retrieved information off the internet. So obviously there's a vast amount of information available, but they enable an efficient and targeted search queries, which really empowered us to find relevant content quickly, and that was a massive game changer. YouTube in 2005 transformed how we consume video content, and it offered a platform for user-generated content and alternative media sources. Citizen journalists emerged, and they challenged the traditional media gatekeepers and provided diverse perspectives. Then, in the early mid-2000s, social media platforms began to revolutionize how we connect, share, and communicate with each other. They really reshaped social dynamics and our communications patterns. And even it could be said, as we look back, for better or worse, has influenced how we behave as a society. Blockchain would be one of the more recent ones, and that began to introduce a decentralized and immutable ledger. And that really has begun to challenge the traditional centralized banking systems. It's pretty early in terms of widespread uptake of it. Obviously, we're all familiar with Bitcoin and some of the other ones, but it's fair to say that we probably haven't seen a settled direction for how it's going to impact us longer term. But the point here is that all of these at their time were revolutionary. And now if we think about them, they're very much part of our everyday lives. And if I just hold up my Apple iPhone, pretty much everything that I've just talked about is now encased in something that I carry on my person. I'm sure everyone here does watching as well. So that brings us to AI. And that sort of really in the tech world is what's seen as the next frontier of technological advancement. And what's really exciting and also a little bit scary is that it really enables machines to simulate human intelligence for the first time and perform cognitive tasks. So what does it actually mean? And luckily, I've invited Andy on here as our head of engineering to actually kind of unpack what that really means in plain language.
Yeah, so essentially the term AI as it's used currently is usually generative AI, which essentially means computer algorithms that can effectively simulate human cognitive processes, as Charles just mentioned. So learning, decision-making, problem solving, and even creativity like generating art. And it's this last and perhaps most human quality where generative AI comes into the picture and to the fore. It's artificial intelligence, which we've actually had for decades, but it's capable of producing new data. So, that could be text, that could be images, it could be videos. I don't know if you've seen any of the Sora demos, but, dolphins jumping through the water, birds flying through the air. There's some amazing videos that they're now starting to generate. And essentially how these things work is they have generative models that learn like the patterns and the structure of the data. So whether that's words or text or video or images, and it essentially can generate new data based on a prompt. It's different than your classic AI in the sense that classic AI would, it might make a prediction based on a data set, or it might identify features of data like pulling out pictures of a particular type of tree or animal. But generative AI leverages the power of neural networks. So essentially, it creates novel content from what is a silicon brain, which is quite weird when you think about it. But the other thing about generative AI that really makes it different from the historic stuff is that you can use prompting. So rather than needing an engineer like me to write code, you can ask it to do what you want it to do. A little bit like Scotty in the 90s Star Trek movie where he's like, computer, do this. Well, we can now do that. And you can actually use voice and you can use text to ask it to generate content rather than needing an engineer.
So look, the nice thing is that, if we take it from sort of the general AI and what is it, and we start applying it down into businesses and organizations. And the nice thing is that, from all the research that is starting to be done on AI, and in this case, one by Frost and Sullivan's 2022 Global State of AI, they say that, 80% of organizations expect AI and machine learning to drive revenue growth, improve operational efficiency, and enhance customer experiences. And look, as accounting firms, that's all, that's very much three things that would be fantastic to think of AI as being able to contribute to. So look, there are 12 things that, generally they think will be able to AI will be able to sort of improve in businesses. But I just want to highlight 4 of them today, just a little bit deeper dive. So first up is better decision making. And this is really seen off the back of AI enabling data-driven decision-making, leading to more accurate and unbiased decisions based on insights extracted from large data sets. Now, the second is efficiency and productivity gains, as AI automates some tasks, is able to process data at scale, and really importantly, frees up human capital for higher level work, resulting in efficiency and productivity gains. Next, we go on to new capabilities and business models expansion, as organizations are beginning to leverage AI to explore new revenue streams and business opportunities by harnessing the data analytics and intelligence of AI. And then the last one was increased profitability, as it improves productivity, helps reduce costs, and identifies new growth opportunities. So 4 things, obviously there's 12 in here, but 4 things that I thought would be particularly of interest to this audience. But I think it's worth saying, like at this point, while there are numerous benefits on offer, organizations are also going to have to be aware of the challenges that AI has, and this could be in terms of data management, biases, maybe regulatory concerns. And Andy's just going to look at a few of those now.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those challenges and some of those risks when adopting AI. So for starters, there's actually the data risks. So from a data perspective, especially like from a data sovereignty point of view, Are you okay with your data getting out or where your data is going? So knowing where your AI data ends up is actually crucial. Is it going straight into the large tech companies that are based offshore? So know where your data is. And you can now self-host. So you can self-host on your local machine. You can self-host in the cloud. AWS and Microsoft and all of those guys are doing where you can own the hosting. But it's very important to go, hey, if you're playing around with a tool and you're just having fun, that's fine. But if you're actually taking proprietary data or intellectual property, you got to be very careful about where you put that so that you know that it's controlled. Hallucinations, we've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but essentially this is where a model generates false information. And hallucinations can actually appear very plausible because obviously models produce fluent, coherent text. And the reason this can happen is because models aren't actually based in reality. Like they're just predicting what word they think is likely to come next based on the prompt that you have given. Tech companies are actually working on solutions to this, which is called artificial general intelligence. So essentially that would be similar to what we have now with generative, except they would actually have intelligence. They would know what's in the real world. They would know, oh, actually that's not true. So they'd be able to distinguish fact from fiction, as it were. But currently they can't. So it's important that you review anything that you generate with generative AI to go, hey, is this actually true? Is it actually representative? Equally, you can end up with machines talking to machines, which is happening now. So you can get AI programs that run other AI programs that then run other AI programs, which from a productivity point of view is amazing. But we do have to ask, where's the oversight? Who's checking what these machines are doing? Are they secretly working on Terminator in the background? They're probably not, but let's be honest, but it is important to know what they are doing. Equally, AI's black box model. So number one, these systems are proprietary and in the sense of they don't reveal the data that they're trained on. So we don't necessarily know the quality of that data, where it came from. Was it just from the web? Was it consumer data? Where have they sourced it from? So that's the first part of the black box. The second part of the black box is actually, we don't know how they produce the results that they produce. So these generative models are literally silicon brains. So we just train them by going, hey, this is text. This is what sentences look like. And they get an understanding of like, oh, this word means this, and that word means that. But essentially they are like a network, a neural network that essentially generates text much like we do. And so you can't simply look in there like with classical and go, oh, what rules is this thing following? It doesn't work like that. Obviously, there's also lastly the AI and job concerns. And are you worried about your job in the next 1 to 2 years? Certainly for me, there's been lots of redundancies in the field of engineering. And so we just don't know what's going to happen. And that's why it's important not to hide away from this technology, but rather to go, okay, how can I use this? Because it is literally like any other tool. You can use it productively if you apply it properly.
Cool. So in the marketing sense, what does it actually mean if we sort of, again, try and narrow it down into the very specific type of marketing? So at this point, it really means text generators and maybe some image generators. And the most famous of all, and really when it came into the mainstream, was OpenAI released its ChatGPT tool in late 2022. And it was one of the fastest ever growing software releases, and it's sort of, millions of users being added every month. Since then, it's not the only one on the marketplace. You could have a look at Google Bard, Microsoft Copilot, and those are on the generative AI. And there are also lots of other ones which are more specific maybe to other industries or other niches. Now, as Andy alluded to, there are some risks and limitations. And again, if I try and sort of go from the very sort of global macro risks to sort of what does it mean in a marketing space, I actually asked ChatGPT to list some of these issues, and you can see them here. So I think, again, key ones that are going to affect accounting firms, given the role that you play with your clients. And the first one off the bat was lack of real world experience. So ChatGPT and the other tools, they actually lack real world understanding. They don't have a contextual awareness. So as Andy said, it can generate responses that seem appropriate, but it doesn't really understand the situation or the context that maybe you're trying to apply it to. And this kind of leads on to, the inability to generate factual information. Again, it is trained on data, which may or may not be accurate, up to date. So it's not always a reliable source for factual queries or, importantly, specific knowledge. tendency to generate incoherent or unnatural responses. And I think, the unnatural responses especially is one to take into consideration. Sometimes you will see there's either a specific way that AI writes things, or it just doesn't quite make sense. It just, tonally isn't the way that necessarily a human would write it. So again, that's sort of linked to sort of coherence and relevancy. The potential for bias or offensive content, again, obviously this is purely back to the data. There's a lot of great information out there on the internet, and there's a lot of dross. So again, depending on what your particular tool has been trained on, and as Andy pointed out, we don't know what it is, there has the potential to put out some, bias or bad content. So again, something to monitor. Difficulty handling complex queries or multi-turn conversations. So, those sorts of conversations, as you'll be well aware when you're having them with your firm, with your clients, they really require some deep reasoning and understanding of the long-term context. And again, this is not something that these tools at present have. So if you think of contextually simple things that can do it, or sort of short things that can do. So limited domain specificity. So again, if you think of all the data that it's been trained on, so it knows a little bit about a lot of things, but its domain knowledge doesn't go particularly deep. So again, if you think of, in your case, the specific conversations you would have with your clients, don't expect that these tools are going to really understand, the nuances of particular industries, niches, and what may be affecting your clients. And then the last couple, potential for misinformation. It can produce misleading or incorrect responses. So as with everything, especially given the role that you play, accuracy is key. So you really have to exercise caution and some critical thinking, if you are using these sorts of tools for anything more than some quite straightforward uses, which we'll show you in a few minutes. And then the last one, which Andy just talked about, again, sensitive or personal identifier information, not something that I would recommend putting into these tools. We don't know who maybe has access to it or where it can go. Now, having just given some ideas of what can go wrong, this is a real world example of what did go wrong. And it wasn't a particularly bad one. It was sort of a bit of a funny story. And it happened in New Zealand at the local supermarket. It was picked up by The Guardian. And basically, they had an AI-powered chatbot called the Savvy Meal Bot. And people could put in different products from the supermarket, and it would then suggest recipes. Now, because people put in everything from things that they could eat to other products like shoe polish and drain cleaner, it came up with a whole range of things, including poison bread sandwiches, mosquito repellent, roast potatoes, and chlorine gas. So again, it didn't understand that it was doing anything wrong. It was purely acting off the data and information that it had been given, and it was serving up a plausible recipe. So again, it's a bit of a laugh, but if we take it back to kind of your role with your clients, this is not the sort of result that you want. But the key thing here is that it's not meant to frighten you away. It's just meant to give you a healthy dose of caution and an understanding of maybe better ways to use it, because it can be fantastic when you use it in the right way. It's a super powerful tool. And here I've just sort of listed a couple of ideas, where generative AI can help. So, brainstorming topic ideas. So if you're having trouble organizing a topic or coming up with ideas to write about it, then AI can help. It can give you ideas about what to write, or even if you ask for sort of, you give it a topic, it can then give you sort of content pillars maybe to talk about that particular topic. Overcoming writer's block, such a common challenge that we all face. You know what you want to write, but how do you get started? Now you can actually, give that little bit of an insight that you have about the piece that you want to write, and it can actually do a bit of the heavy lifting. So again, you might sort of suggest a topic, and maybe the target audience. I will then give you some content, and then you can obviously get in there and adapt the content. It's also great at proofreading material. So, if you've got an email or a blog that you've written, you can pop it into an AI tool, and it will check the spelling, it will check the grammar, and make sure that it's all looking good. And equally, not just limited to checking spelling and grammar, you can actually ask it to, review the writing style or the tone that you've asked. You could ask it to add sort of key SEO phrases or make it generally more your style. So there's actually quite a lot that you can do, just using your own content. And in terms of writing content, I mentioned before, it's not good at those sort of multi-turn conversations, but what it is good at is at short content. So if you're thinking of, sort of repetitive communications or short descriptions, so they could be, a service or a product description, it could be a social media post. That's where, that's the total sweet spot for this sort of technology. But as Andy's going to talk about prompts, that's really the key ingredient, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, being able to effectively generate AI that is useful and powerful for your business depends massively on your prompts. So you want to make sure that you're crafting and refining your prompts, so just not using something basic, because AI can produce specific tailored responses, but only if you give it the opportunity to do so. So basically, it's about massively increasing the quality of the content that it outputs. So let's talk about some of the best practice for prompting. So number one, you want to be detailed and provide context. So essentially, most of these models have been trained on massive amounts of data. So if you don't give them any direction, it will be very generic. It will be very bland. So you want to say, the more detail you can provide, the better. So you want to explain your goal, you want to explain your desired outcome and provide relevant data and links. And obviously, when we do our demo, we'll give you an idea of what this looks like. But essentially, say you were trying to come up with ideas for an email campaign, you want to provide detailed information. So like, what industry do you work in, details about your brand, information about products or services that you want to draw attention to, who is your target audience? So like, who are you writing this communication and who are you writing it to? And obviously, what's it about? And essentially, that's how you get the best out of AI. Also asking specific questions. So like, obviously, if you don't want to, you could ask something simple like, what should I do for my next marketing campaign? Well, it might give you some kind of generic marketing advice, but instead you could ask, hey, what kind of email campaign would work best for an accountant targeting small rural businesses? Now, obviously, you can get even more specific than that. So one way to think about it is like, hey, what's my next campaign? Which subset of my clients am I going to target? And let me put together a prompt that's specifically around that. You can try out different approaches, so we all learn and think differently, and actually generative AI is the same. So you want to try different ways of wording your Chat GPT marketing prompts. If one prompt didn't work, then you can try changing keywords or phrases. You can also give context when asking for revisions. So essentially, rather than just hitting the try again button or asking it to try again, you can say, hey, actually try again, but with more professional tone, or try again, but tailor the output to, a middle-aged woman business owner or whatever it might be. So asking with more details helps the AI better understand what you're looking for and helps lead to more effective and targeted responses. And lastly, we've talked about this a lot already, but you want to verify the AI response. So it's really powerful, and you'll see how good it is in just a minute, but you want to just double check the accuracy. You want to look at it and go, hey, is this exactly what I want? The synthetic intelligence isn't always perfect, but with a little human oversight and input, then your prompts and your generative AI can be a great asset. Cool. And how we're approaching AI inside of BOMA. So you will have seen a little bit. We've had it in our chatbots. We've been using it in the background with like writing code and some of the things under the hood. What we've just released in the past week, it's not announced yet, so you guys are going to get kind of like the first official announcement of it, is Content Assist. So basically, it's the ability to customize any of the articles. So I know people often kind of go, oh, but I don't want to have the same articles as everyone else. Well, guess what? Now you don't have to. You can just go in there. You can ask ChatGPT to customize the articles. You can change the tone. You can summarize an article. You can rewrite headlines, whatever you want to do. You can also create content from scratch. We're going to demo that in a minute. And as we've already said, the opportunity in this context is to utilize AI tools to help you produce less technical content. So it can write an email or an article based on knowledge that it already has, like managing staff in the workplace. You can always see the content it generates. So as we've mentioned, you can review it and make sure that you're happy with the quality and the accuracy of it before you use it. And using a tool like ChatGPT for this type of content makes sense. It avoids the limitations that it has while playing to AI's strength and meaning that you don't have to write everything from scratch. Longer term at BOMA, like the future, we want to leverage AI's data crunching capacity. So basically to be able to look over your campaigns and go, hey, this email went really well. Why don't you try something like that again? Or the social campaign on this subject worked really well, like a lot of engagement. Why don't you do something like that again? So basically making recommendations so that you can market and grow your business more effectively. Righty-ho. So let me bring up BOMA. So for those of you that aren't BOMA or GAP users already, this is the dashboard. So BOMA is a content marketing engine. So we've got like a content library. You can send emails, you can send social campaigns. I'm going to go to the content library quickly so we can come in here. We can see content from Walters Kluwer, BOMA. We can filter to specific libraries. We can see the GAP, so we can see their content. But I'm actually going to start today not from the content library. I'm going to start from Content Assist. So I'm going to create what's called a branded web page. So essentially a branded web page is where we host a web page for you inside of BOMA. And this is something that users asked for. Like some users, they're just like, oh, I don't want to have to touch my website. I don't want to have to do anything over there. I just want to do everything in BOMA. So we created the branded web page so that you could create content, so articles in BOMA, it's all hosted here. Of course, you can equally create content on your website, and then you can share it in BOMA using the website share function. And we have users that do both that. And it's quite funny because they often don't understand each other. The people that are sharing to their website are like, what? People share stuff just on BOMA? I'm like, yeah, they do. And the people sharing on BOMA, they're like, oh, I don't want to have to go to my website. So it's a shortcut for people that want it. And for people that want to share their website, go right ahead. Anyway, we're going to use Content Assist. We're going to write an article on 7 strategies for managing staff. And so essentially when you're creating a branded web page, you put in an article title and then you edit the article. What BOMA is going to do is it's going to preload that title in here. It will come in with your branding. So basically I've got it branded Huge Accounting. That's our like demo brand. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this image. As with all of these in BOMA, you can search for the free photos. We've got like millions of photos in our library. Let's say that you're targeting, mostly, retail clients or cafe clients. So we might search for cafe to try and find something that's suitable that we can use. Maybe I like this one. So I'll bring that in. I'll insert that into my article. So that'll be like the hero image for the article. And obviously, you can also edit these if you want to, but we'll just insert that as is. And here on the left, so we've got create your content here. Now, obviously, I could sit here and I could write this article, but the new feature in BOMA is we now have on the right-hand side here in this tab, when you click on one of these boxes, is Write with AI. So I can click on the Write with AI. My AI Content Assist pops up and says, hey, I can help you write faster and more effectively. Now, there's a bunch of built-in prompts like Charles was talking about earlier. So, make it fun, engaging, like whatever the tone is. So that the little square brackets there kind of mean, hey, you can click on that, replace that with fun, engaging, whatever you want to use. But in this case, I'm going to paste in a prompt that I've prepared earlier. One of the things that I've done, so we've been using, as Viv already mentioned, AI for the past year in BOMA. And one of the most valuable things you can do is start to have a prompt document. So I just have it's actually just a text document in my case, but it could be a Word document or a Google Sheet or whatever type of document you want to use, where you store your prompts so that you're not having to always write them from scratch. So if you've got a prompt that basically says, hey, this is my business, this is who I am, this is my target audience, and I want you to write an X for my target audience. So you can see here, this is a fairly basic prompt. You can make them much more featured than this, but this is good for our demo. So you're an accountant with small business clients. Write a 700-word article for your clients on 7 strategies for better managing their staff in their small business. So basically, in this case, I'm telling ChatGPT, hey, you're an accountant, write me a 700-word article. Now, obviously, it's going to take a moment to do this because it is generating it, and it's going to come back, and here's the article. So it's taken a little bit of time, but not too much time to write it. And it's got a nice introduction, and I'm going to look at these and go, okay, clearly define roles and responsibilities, communicate effectively, goals and expectations, teamwork, training development, recognize and reward performance, lead by example. Okay, great. So that all looks fine. And obviously, if I was doing this properly, I'd read through this very carefully. But for the purposes of this demo, I'll apply this, and it will basically pull that content across into this branded web page. I can customize this further if I want to. So maybe I want that to say read more on our website or contact us. I could make that go to an email if I wanted to. A lot of our users do that. What I'm also going to do is I'm just going to take this introduction here and I'm going to copy that text. I'm going to save and close that article. So I'm happy with that article. I'm like, that can go live now. I'm going to come out here, and rather than writing the summary intro, I'm just going to paste that introduction that ChatGPT had written for me. And if I wanted to, I could have got it to rewrite it. I could have got it to change it slightly. But I'm happy with that as is. I've got my article title. I've got my introduction. So that's for my social media posts. Then I'm going to click continue. Now, what BOMA is going to do is it's going to create all of my channels. So it's going to add LinkedIn, Facebook, and X, and my email channel, and it's going to share that article to each of those different channels. And what I am going to have to do is I am going to have to jump into the email, because obviously it hasn't created an email. So like everything else is ready to go. So all my social posts already done. They're ready to go. But I am going to need to create an email. Now, I could bring in the whole article. So that whole article that I just created in BOMA, if I wanted to put that in the email, I could do that. But this morning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build an email. So I'm going to bring it in as an intro and a hero. So basically, that article is going to become the intro hero for my newsletter, but I'm actually going to bring in some other articles as well. So there it is. It's got my it's got my logo at the top. It's got the thing. It's got the the hero image. And it's got the learn more. So when they click on that, that's going to take them to the branded article. Now, for my next piece, I'm going to go to that content library. I'm going to add a content library article. I'm going to add a gap one and cash flow, as Viv was talking about. Let's find the 7 courses of poor cash flow. That's very topical right now for a lot of business owners. So we're going to bring that in. And I could reuse the same format, but because I want this to be the hero, I'm going to choose this one here and bring that in underneath. So now I've got 7 strategies for managing staff. If I was rebuilding this again, I probably wouldn't choose the 2 7s unless I'm like really obsessed with 7. So maybe I'd get ChatGPT to do 5 or 9, like a different number. But what I'm also going to do is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go and grab a URL of an article from our website that I'm going to bring in as well. And essentially, I can click the add content button again. And instead of doing the content library, I can go to a website URL. And this could be from my website, or it could be, it could be a newspaper. It could be a government site, like it could be a tax site. Essentially, you can link to an article from anywhere. And essentially, I'm going to bring that in with the same format underneath. And actually, I might just drag that and bring that up here. And actually, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I've got 7 strategies up here, art of networking up here, cash flow freedom down here. I might look at this title and I might go, oh, actually, I want to rewrite this. Now, you'll notice when I click on a piece of text, it like highlights blue around it. And essentially, that's the context for the generative AI for ChatGPT. So when I click on this, it's got the blue square around it. When I click Write with AI, when I ask it to do something, so if I say, make it more engaging without changing, make it more engaging and shorter. Now that's a pretty short prompt. That may not work, but let's give it a crack. Here we go, the art of networking techniques for great connections. So I'm going to apply that. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to remove the BOMA because I don't need that on there, because obviously they know who I am. And if I wanted to, I could rewrite this introduction text. I could rewrite this introduction text, like if I wanted to change that for my tone. If I wanted to, I could also grab, so we have placeholder rows in BOMA, so I can grab an introduction. I could get generative AI to write this, but you know what? It's kind of nicer to write this introduction myself, so I would probably write this myself. Equally, if I wanted to, put some other kind of summary in here, I could again drag in another paragraph down here and go, actually, I'm going to get AI to write me something here. So maybe I want it to write about some more networking tips or something else. Anyway, I think that's everything I was planning on covering. Is there anything else, Charles or Viv, anything else you guys wanted to see from our previous demos?
Well, that's pretty beautiful. You've done, it's fantastic, Andy. You've done 3 articles in 6 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty impressive, actually. I have to say it's well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Look, I might take back the screen and I'll just share again the next steps. Viv, would you like to kick this slide off?
Yeah, sure. And we've got a little bit of time for questions. Please pop anything you like into the Q&A bar.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that you've seen today in terms of AI or content assist, or indeed around the GAP or BOMA content or marketing in general. So look, just before we get to questions, I'll just give you a minute or two to put those in there into the Q&A or chat box. If you'd like to learn more about the GAP, you can sign up for book a demo with them, and obviously also take their 30-day free trial. I promise you won't regret it. And equally, if you'd like to learn more, book a demo with BOMA, we offer a 14-day free trial. So look, I'll just pop across into questions. One question we did actually get from, and this was earlier today, because we've done this already in Australia and New Zealand, and this was around about the price. So actually at the moment, it doesn't actually cost anything more to use Content Assist in BOMA. So it is the paid version of ChatGPT. And so if you were having to purchase this you directly yourself, that would actually be $20 US a month. So obviously that's just included in your BOMA subscription.
Well, Charles, just a question on that, Charles. So the BOMA subscription stays the same?
Yeah, so the BOMA subscription stays the same. And I think, look, in time, as we learn more about how our users are using it, because obviously we're picking up the cost at the back end, we may in the future need to put some sort of cost around there, just because it's kind of it's a data usage fee that we pay directly back to ChatGPT. But obviously at the moment, we're really keen. We believe massively that this is going to be a huge assistance to our accounting users. So, you know, we just want to get as many people using it as possible. And then if in the future it is the case that we need to sort of put some small charge around it, then we'll obviously, you know, think about what that might be down the track.
Oh, well, that's fabulous. And I think we have got a question coming through. Can you select what data AI ChatGPT uses to generate content? For example, if you wanted AI to summarize the content you've created.
Yes, yeah. So you absolutely can. Antonio, is it Antonio or is it Antoine? Antoine, probably.
Antoine.
Yes, you absolutely can. So you can select text. So the little blue highlighted box that I showed. So if you selected like a big long article, like the article that I generated, you could basically then select that and you could ask it to summarize it. We do actually have a whole bunch of prompts that Charles and I have been busy getting ready that will be available in BOMA, because it can actually be tricky to get ChatGPT to summarize sometimes. So we've got some pretty specific prompts to help you do that. But yeah, absolutely you can, because that's quite useful if you've got longer form content and then you want to be able to introduce it, you know, on social media or you know, in an email or something like that. So yes, absolutely you can use it for that.
So Andy, for example, you could have taken that 700-word article, 7 causes of poor cash flow, and asked the system to summarize it, because you're wanting to do a series of social posts, or just send it out by way of EDM to invite to a webinar, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's clever. And so those prompts that you're creating, you're going to create a little bit of a playlist of those, are you? People are going to be able to, you know, choose the prompt and...
Yeah, so ultimately we'd like to be able to have some more prompts in the system itself. So that's something that we are working on. The prompts that I'm talking about there are going to be in our help area. So essentially we're going to have a few different help articles with different prompts that you can use. And some of them will be just sort of like straight prompts, and others will be take it and fill in the blanks. And then you've got a good prompt for your accounting or bookkeeping business.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think, as Andy mentioned earlier, this will obviously be something that you can download. So you might then download it and then sort of highlight the 5 or 10 prompts that you use regularly all the time. that work, and you can sort of take it and build it out into something that makes sense for you. Very much like Andy has done with his own prompt work for the engineering side. He's got I mean, it looks like gibberish to me because it's all sort of specific coding prompts, but for a sort of a generative content side of things, it's very much plain English. So, you saw the prompt that Andy sort of suggested earlier, and it's just you're asking it to do something for you in plain English.
Oh, that's brilliant. A nice comment from Elliot. Looked fab. Thank you. Lovely. Thanks,
Awesome.
Elliot. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, guys. Well, look, have a great day over there in the UK. It's not too far away from bedtime here in New Zealand. Lovely to have you online. Thank you, Andy and Charles, for coming on and showing, our GAP members what you've done with generative AI in your product. It looks fantastic.